Welcome to Sportstime, special on LSC. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have Dennis Kozlowski with me, former head football coach, head track coach, and athletic director at Bethel High School. Welcome, Koz.
It's my pleasure to be here, Bob.
Well, we want to find out a little bit about you. We're going to go back, not from when you were born, but let's go back where you played high school. You were in Pennsylvania, correct?
I was reared in a place called Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and played football, basketball, baseball, and we won titles in football and baseball. Basketball, we got to the state finals my sophomore year, but my senior year we weren't very good. And then I had the opportunity to attend Frederick Military Academy and graduated #1 in my class there, and then went to Frederick College. I had a tryout, pro football, and then got the job at Bethel when it opened in 1968, and that was before integration became mandatory, and Bethel High School opened on the peninsula with a 50-50 split of races.
All right, well, let's go back over to Frederick College. Now, this was in Portsmouth, which is since closed, but you were quarterback? Were you the big guy on defense? And you also were a kicker, is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, I was a tight end my freshman year and started, and I made the all-college football team for the state of Virginia, even though we were a small school. And I played monster on defense, and I did the place kicking. And ironically, the coach came to me near the end of the season, and he said, "Koz, we're going to move you to quarterback. We're playing Hampton-Sydney. They're undefeated and ranked, so we want you to quarterback." And I hadn't played quarterback since high school, and I was a backup quarterback that started at safety. So it was a unique experience for me to go back to quarterback. But, you know, the coach told me, he said, "Well, you're the only guy that the kids listen to on the team, so we're going to make you do it."
You're trying to tell me you were very vocal back then, too?
Absolutely.
Okay, because you were one of the few coaches I could see that would stand on the sideline that could almost get inside a face mask when you were talking to your players. But we used to kid about call you Killer Koz and all this stuff. But let me go back over to Frederick. Now, you were a kicker. Do you know who your holder was? He was a freshman.
Yes.
His name was Ray Smith, who is
Ray
now
Smith, that's
athletic
correct.
director
Yes, at Bethel. That's
at
correct.
Bethel,
Yeah.
which I thought
He
was
played
kind
football too.
Right, but he was 1 year there, and then he went to Emory Henry for his final 3 years. But I thought that was kind of unique that he ended up replacing you as AD over at Bethel High School and used to hold the ball for you when you kicked.
Well, he did a great job. He was a good teammate, good holder, and he was a very good athlete. And I believe he's exceptional in tennis and golf. And he's done a fine job replacing me over at Bethel.
Well, we're very fortunate to have 4 great athletic directors in the city of Hampton, which really helps when you have programs that do as well. Now, I know when Hampton was first opened up and it was the school, Bethel came into existence, you went over there, and the first year, you guys did not play a junior varsity schedule, even though you didn't have seniors, did you?
When we opened the school, surprisingly enough, we had only sophomores and juniors, and we played a varsity schedule. And the initial game of Bethel's history, we played Ferguson, who was picked to win the district. And
Wayne Begore was coaching there, wasn't he?
Absolutely. And Wayne was a fabulous man, a good coach, and he became a great athletic director for the entire city of Newport News. But we went over there, and we beat them that night, and we were named the team of the week. And I think one of the old Burger Heavens, gave all our team members free burgers.
Well, now you had some guys on that team, even though you were assistant coach, and I knew from people I've talked to that you were ready to put the pads on to help teach these guys what to do. And here you were a coach, but you had some speedsters on that team, and Bolenchuk was the coach. You had some good speed on that team.
Oh, we had some great talent on that team, and a lot of people neglect to recognize that Harrison Davis, who later became the first black quarterback to go to the University of Virginia, he was our quarterback, and he was a tremendous athlete because he not only participated in football, but he did basketball and he did track, and he won numerous track titles and almost won the district indoor and outdoor meet because of his versatility. Other players on that team, when they graduated 3 years later, went on to other colleges and were very successful. David Walters, who last I heard, was coaching some of the local Little League teams after he finished school.
Right. I know that in the track you had Manny Mines and it comes to Matt Dobson. These kids could really run. But Bowling gave up football. You took over in 1974, and what a great year, right? Tell me about that.
Well, it was in 1973. I attended the Lafayette Martinsville State Championship game at William & Mary in the rain. And some coaches from Hampton and I went up there and we sat through the rain and the mud, and Lafayette lost the first ever playoff game in the system. It was instituted that year. So then that spring, I was named the head football coach, and as fate would have it, we won the district by beating Hampton, and we went into the playoffs, and we ended up winning the state championship up at Woodbridge, where we were supposed to get beat by over 50 points, because I can recall major college coaches coming in to visit us for the state championship game, and everybody was going to be recruiting this running back named Russell Davis at Woodbridge, right, who the week before had rushed for 480 yards, and they beat a team out of Richmond like 65-0. And we were somewhat, not really awed, but we were surprised that nobody gave us an opportunity to beat them or a chance to beat them. They said, you're going to be lucky if you score. And of course, some unique things occurred, and I've got to tell a story because we were down 14-0 at halftime. And I told the players on the side, I said, well, guys, it was fourth down about our own 35-yard line. And I said, guys, we're either going to go down big or we're going to do something. I said, okay, coach, we're with you. We've been with you all year. It's okay. Fake punt. And we called a fake punt and turned around. Mike Dunn took the snap. He dumped the pass over to Derwin Tucker on an out pattern. He caught the ball. We had a first down. So we got stopped again, and here we go, and we're on their about 30-yard line. You know, and it was too far for a field goal at that time, so we turned around and, well, line up, punt again. We're going to fake it again. This time we did it again. They didn't expect us to do it again, and we got it and completed it, scored a touchdown, then kicked a field goal. So at the end of the half, it was 14-10. And, of course, on the ensuing kickoff in the second half, Derwin Tucker took the ball on the 3-yard line, goes 97 yards for a touchdown, and we're up. Subsequently, Russell Davis did what he could do without a gain over 5 yards. They drove the ball 90 yards and scored a touchdown to go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, I know you end up winning, but there's some guys on that team. Mike Dunn comes to example, but one of the guys was on that team was coaching out at Phoebus. Greg Day.
Greg Day was, without question, one of the best hard-nosed defensive linemen, offensive linemen we've ever had at Bethel. And he's done a tremendous job working with the weight program over there. And I can remember when I used to have to encourage him to get to the weight room back in those days.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your philosophy. Who was your mentor? Did you have a mentor when before you took over football as a head coach? Who helped you?
Well, in all honesty, William James, a psychologist, said, I am a part of all that I have met. And throughout my career coaching, going all the way back to high school, military school, college, and the coaches that I knew and worked with both at Bethel and around the district, I learned a lot from all of them. And I even had an opportunity to talk with some of the best major college coaches in the country, like Lou Holtz, Mark Levy, Woody Hayes, Gary Moeller, Bo Schembechler, Terry Donahue, and I think Frank Beamer, and of course now having a major college coach that came from my program, Mike London, that is a real treat.
Yeah, it's got to be a real treat. I hear you talking, and I know your philosophy is hard-nosed. I mean, you've not been one to try to slip a deal in there. You're just going to run it down the throat, and you're very successful at it. But one thing that impressed me when I coached with you, we was track coaches together, was the way you could use your psychology on the runners. And I'm sure you did it in football too. But talk a little bit about that, because that's something that doesn't get seen. You don't get to see this on TV or on the ball games or anything. This happens in the locker room.
The basis of it is something I did for a national conference on sports, and it was intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, when you see the little decals on helmets and that, that's your extrinsic motivation. Your intrinsic motivation is what can motivate somebody from the inside to be successful. It has to appeal to what do you want to be. I can recall, since I retired from coaching football in 2006, when I started working with some young people in my home city, the first thing I said to them, how good do you want to be? And of course, there aren't very many young people that you meet. They're going to say, well, I want to be a failure. I want to be the best. Okay, define that. Tell me what that is. And when you make the individual not only say it, but to write it, and then to back it up, and you show them the way to accomplish that, then it's their intrinsic motivation to want to become that level player so that they're going to be successful, whether it's going to be only on their team, their city, their region, their state, or maybe even the nation. And I never tried to hinder an athlete from thinking, well, let me only be the best in the city of Hampton. Let me see if I could reach this other level, whether it's the state, whether it's national or international.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the football and the changes. There's a lot of emphasis been on the concussions and things of that nature and the safety of the ball players. But you've seen a lot of changes from when you played in high school, college, and then coaching. You have seen a lot of changes in football, not only in equipment-wise, but in the philosophy and in the teaching of your athletes. You can't teach them to high-low anymore. If a guy's engaged at top, you can't take his knees out. There's a lot of things that have changed. Give me your views on that, because that's a big thing that has changed since you first started playing football.
The National Federation in the 80s took the little man out of football. When I took over in '74, we ran the wishbone offense, and no matter what size your backs were, usually they were very fast and they were strong. And one of the reasons we instituted the weight program, because Bethel was one of the first schools to have a weight program. Steve Isley helped build our weight room, and of course then our players used it incessantly until I left Bethel in 2000. It has since been upgraded. But when they took away blocking below the waist, it took the little man out of football, and what they did, they said, well, you're going to have to throw the ball more. And of course, that's what a lot of the major colleges were doing at the time, so they attempted to, I think, accommodate more of the passing game that major colleges were using, or any college was using. The sad part about it was, by taking that blocking below the waist out, I had to change my philosophy in getting away from the wishbone. Although there were many tenets of the wishbone that I kept in my offense, we went to a sprint out draw series that Paul London and Allen Iverson made relatively famous.
Right. Well, I know that, and that's what I was going to talk about a little bit about. Mike Dunn was your quarterback, your first team, and your last championship team. Your last one was Allen Iverson. And Allen went on, of course, to great things in basketball, but a lot of people from outside of this area didn't realize what a great football player he was.
There's no question. He could do so many things. I made mention in a couple of the videos I did for ESPN and the NBA that, he probably could have been a Deion Sanders, because he was such an electrifying kick returner and also a great receiver. But his real calling, I think, would have been he could play this one-on-one secondary as a corner or as a free safety. We were playing Norview in his junior year, and the guy tried to throw the ball the entire game doing a run and shoot offense. You know, after the 5th interception, I think I would have stopped throwing the ball down the field, but he didn't. And of course, Allen had like 7 or 8 interceptions, which is still a state record today.
Right. Well, and I talk to people who are staunch Hampton football alumni and fans, and they tell me without a doubt that it was the best return man they've ever seen was Allen Iverson. And Ronald Curry was great, but they said Allen was by far the best. If you had to bring a punt back or a kickoff, give it to Allen because he's going to make something happen. As he did, if I remember, in that first game, the championship game up at EC Glass, when they punted the ball to him, he let it bounce one time, and then he got it on the bounce, and nobody touched him.
Well, they thought that he would not handle the ball because it was such a short kick. And it was a calculated risk that he took, and he did a great job with it. And of course, all the players set up the wall and got the blocks to spring him, and it was super. I think probably the most intriguing play, for those that may not remember, we beat Norcom in a regional championship game in a very close game, and they scored their first touchdown. And Allen walked to the sidelines and said to the team, he said, "If they kick that ball to me, I'm running it back for a touchdown. They're not going to stop me." And of course, they lined up, and the kickoff return team went on the field. Sure enough, they kicked the ball to Allen Iverson, and guess what? About 8 seconds later, he's crossing the goal line, doing his inimitable, unique walk. And of course, now we missed the extra point, so we're down 7-6, but we came back and won.
Well, but that the one that was in the mud?
Yes.
And you kicked, I don't know, 2 or 3 field goals in that.
Correct.
I mean, so you're missing an extra point and kicking a field goal, but that would have to be the worst game condition-wise that I've seen in a long time.
And ironically, our game plan was to throw the ball, and I guess when you guys were doing the game from up top, you were saying, why in the world are they throwing the ball? But I think, Norcom had a lot to do with it. They did a super job. They had a great coach over there. And, we knew what we had to do to win, and we got it done.
That was just a fantastic year because you had to come back so many times to win to get on to the state. And then the state was like, oh, this isn't even hard. Now we've already beat all the hard teams. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and go to track because I know you've won a lot of state championships in track. Track is different in that you have sprinters, you have distance, you have the field events. So, this is a whole different animal than football.
Well, I believe I was fortunate to have been named the head track coach at Bethel at its opening. And we were able to, we had Charles Dobson and Harrison Davis were phenomenal. And we did very, very well. We lost the state that year, my first year coaching, first year the schools opened by 1 point to Doug Dickinson and Julie Kahn, the legend at Newport News. And I can still hear him with his chewing his cigar and going, Doug, if you win this one, I think we got it made. It was a trip. And we lost the next year with those guys coming back. We thought we had a chance, and we lost it to Denby and Coach Jerry Turley, and we lost it by 1 point again, and I didn't have a mile relay. And I said to myself, we're going to have a mile relay for the rest of my career coaching in track because I'm not going to the last event and not have a chance to win a state title. And that's what we did, and we set out to do it, and we did it. We set many records in track and field, winning state titles and having state champions, intermediate hurdles, high hurdles, sprints, the 100 to 200 to 400, long jump. I can remember some athletes used to say, well, I'm going to get a scholarship in basketball. I say, well, I'll tell you what, you come out and you long jump, and if you do it real well, we'll get you scholarship somewhere. And fortunately for this young man, he didn't get a scholarship in basketball, but he came out, he won the long jump at 25 feet 10 inches his senior year and got a full scholarship to VMI. So he was fortunate. But the key ingredient to the success of Bethel football was the fact that so many of those skilled players that were track people were football players. And by learning how to run, and we didn't just teach the backs how to run, we taught everybody how to run, the linemen, everything. I don't know if you were still there at the time, but we used to have what we called the two-belly relay. And we had each lineman run 110 yards. and we would run it when we ran the 880 relay in a dual meet. And here all these big old linemen would line up. They knew they were going to get smoked by the backs of both, or the teams, the 800-meter relay teams, and gun would go off, and there they go, and you'd see them waddle down a lane and hand off. It was hilarious to watch, but their capability of running improved so dramatically that by the time they got into football, you weren't talking about guys that were running 5'8" and 5'9". Everybody was now running close to 5 flat, maybe even faster, which made them more competitive on a national scale, meeting the qualifications of major college coaches.
All right, I'm going to go back to that in just a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about what you taught. Now, most people think a coach, he teaches gym, he's in the gym, he's health and PE. Oh, not you. And if you heard some of the words you're throwing out, some of the philosophers and everything, you didn't teach in the gym, did you?
No, I didn't. I kind of lived in the gym, but I did not teach in there. I majored in English and psychology in college and graduated with honors. And what I tried to do was implement some of those things that I learned not only in the classroom. One of my most poignant moments would come at the beginning of every school year when I would meet my students for the very first time. And as I sat, I was walking around the room calling a roll in this one class one day. And I walked around, Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so, and I ran across a name that I recognized. And I said, Ms. So-and-so, and a little girl in the back of the room raised her hand. She says, "That's me, Coach." And I said, "Listen, I know your brother. I want you to tell him I said hello." What a wonderful person he was. And, "Coach, that's not my brother, that's my daddy." I put my hands over my face and I walked to my desk and I put my elbows on my desk and I sat there like this, shaking my head. Pure silence in the room. You could have heard a pin drop. Now, I had a rule about football players sitting in the front rows, and they were sitting there. And one of them goes, "Coach, are you all right?" And I went, "You know, time flies when you're having fun." I said, "I can't, your daddy?" It was hilarious, and I realized I had been so engrossed in doing what I did that I had totally lost concept of time.
Right. One last question before we get out of here, and I do appreciate you taking time to come in here. You mentioned about teaching people to run, and if I remember right, you got a call from an agent who represents a lineman who needs to increase his speed. Talk just a little bit about that.
Well, when I retired from the Newport News Apprentice School football program in 2006, I had an opportunity to work with some players that wanted an opportunity to prepare for the combine, which they hold in Indianapolis. And agents called and said, "Would you work with these people?" And I took some guys under my wing and I taught them how to run. And one of the local NFL scout days was at Hampton University. And Steve Forbes and I went over there and we took a couple athletes over there and we helped conduct that at Hampton University. And 2 of our guys ran under or at 4.40. And of course, everybody was, "Oh, well, where did these guys come from?" And of course, you know, a lot of people recognized me there, and they said, "Well, look, that's the guy that's working with them." And and ironically, where I would work with these people was at Hampton High School, and I can remember Coach Smith coming out and watching me coach guy, and he would go, "Yeah, he always did run know that track and make all those guys run fast over there." So, you know, it's surprising that players throughout the country, and especially our state, at 6'6", 350 pounds, and they can't run. And I remember asking one guy, I said, "Have you ever been taught how to run?" He said, "Coach, they told me to run, I ran. That's it." Nobody told me to get up on the balls of feet, not on the heels. What's a power leg? What's a quick leg? What's the opposite arm leg? You know, and for them to learn that at this late stage, after going through Little League football, junior high football, high school football, college football, And here they are getting ready to go to a combine.
And now they're going to learn how to run.
Right.
Right. Well, appreciate you taking time to come and see us today. I want to thank you for tuning in to LFC and our special on Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.